Nice. All right, so I'm Paul. Most of you guys know me already, but I wanted to put something together. This kind of a half-baked stream of consciousness from my head about risk and DeFi. I think the reason I want to talk about this is I've been providing liquidity and airdrop farming and doing all this DeFi stuff for almost 5 years now, which is kind of ridiculous. I want to say probably since I first learned about DeFi in 2021 or like late 2020. There's always been some money in some protocol that's been sitting. Like sometimes I just forgot about it. Other times it was on purpose, right? A little bit more about me. I work for Runtime Verification. We're a security company. But to be fair, this is not financial advice. This does not represent the views of my company, even though I use their like deck slides. This is just my stream of consciousness. If anything I say isn't right, stop me. Let's have a discussion. That'll be fun. But yeah, anyway. So this is an about me slide. It's not really how I see myself, to be fair. But there was definitely a point in 2021 where this is kind of what I was doing, right? Like in 2020, COVID shut down my business. I didn't have a whole lot to do, so I discovered crypto, and I just became. I thought being a DJ was really cool. Like I maybe matured out of that a little bit since then. But yeah, like I see a new project, I put $1,000 in, ask no questions, think about it later, see what happens. Sometimes I get a good airdrop, sometimes it really works out, sometimes it doesn't. It was just like any new project I hear about, I'll read for 4 to 10 minutes and then just put money in or not put money in. It was just like monkey see, monkey do. I think that's where the term degen really comes from. But over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot from my mistakes, and I think I can impact some of that knowledge on you guys. So, like, what are the dangers in crypto, right? I've listed like 10 of them here. Like private key management is the first one, right? Like if you can't write down your words or you get compromised, you're gonna lose your money. Nobody could really help you with that, except for banks. Then like these Web 2 phishing attacks, they're very common. They're actually probably the most common way people actually lose money. You go to a website that looks like a different website. You approve a transaction because you think you're just connecting to the app to see something. Next thing you know, it's a wallet drainer. You're done, right? Some of my experienced friends, some of who even work in security, they've been tricked by this stuff. Like especially if it's late at night, maybe you're drinking some beer and you're like playing around with your wallets. They do such a good job making it look like the real thing that anyone could get tricked. But anyway, that's not unique to Web3. Some people are concerned about quantum computing, but like that's a whole different set of problems. A 51% attack is like something if a set of actors takes over a network. So if someone buys 51% of the Bitcoin or 51% of the proof of work network, right? Hypothetically, they can write their own transactions. Go ahead.
Went to hacking stuff. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but I had this past week where someone posed as a venture capitalist. Like, let's hop on a call. I want to be able to invest in.
Two examples of that recently. One was somebody was trying to get us on the podcast, install this like Zoom app to talk to me. That was a malicious piece of software. Another one was they wanted a quote for a security assessment, but they said their code is only available in some country and we have to install a VPN. They sent us a link to a VPN. That was a malicious piece of software. Like it keeps happening. So anyway, did you have a specific example you want to share?
It was something like that. They tried to set up a call. They tried to get me downloads from there. I don't download anything else.
Exactly. I mean, so if you don't, if you can't protect yourself in Web 2, like you're an even bigger target in Web 3 because once they steal a Bitcoin, it's kind of decentralized. It goes away, right?
Go ahead. Yeah, there's like a story about this one kid who's like 18 or something. He stole like $400 million from this from massive. He was like a founder of Venmo, like Sam Weston. I don't know if you heard of him, but he got drained for $400 million from sharing his screen because they acted as a Gemini support or something. So like, I just found that crazy.
There's so many scams out there that website looks like a different website, but again, that's not unique to Web3, so not really a big part of this presentation, but I felt like leaving it out would be doing people a disservice. Anyway, kind of going down, infrastructure bugs, bridge exploits, like whatever you do, the things are lurking in there. The point here is that, it's really hard to kind of manage all this stuff, right? There's all these potential risks around you and you're trying to just make $2 out of $1. and it feels sometimes like an uphill battle. So I came up with this. No, actually, so first, the simplest thing to think about is like just token price. You buy Bitcoin, it goes up, you make money. It's very simple, right? However, like once you start getting into things like Fartcoin, which I don't know if that's their actual logo, but that's pretty good. There's a couple things I wrote there to consider, and I think people keep ignoring them. And short term, maybe it will work out for you, but the fully diluted valuation with circulating supply is a big one that for example, it took me probably a year to figure out what that really means. But for example, Trump launched this token, right? And like 25% of it is circulating right now. There's a price for it. And in 3 months after the launch, so about 2 months from now, he's going to get the other 75% unlocked, right? So he controls 3 times more tokens that actually are circulating, are like being used to trade. So what's going to happen to that price? Probably nothing good. Like maybe Trump will sit on it, maybe he won't. You don't know. But investing in things like that are very speculative, and they're definitely going to move in price way more than Bitcoin, right? That's why Bitcoin's like better than anything else out there. Or if you just want to speculate, there's more growth potential in Trump, you go for it, go crazy. But it's very easy to understand, right? Price go up, price go down. That's really where you live when you're just speculating on like Fartcoin and Coinbase. So instead, I kind of created this pyramid that this is really what I wanted to talk about. For me, holding Bitcoin managed by your own private keys that you store securely in some way on a hardware wallet or something, to me, that's the most money there is. Like a government can't take away from you. Like you can go to the grave with your keywords memorized, and no one could take it from you. To me, that was like the amazing breakpoint. Like, wow, I get crypto now. I understand why people are so into this stuff. Like, no one could take my money away. I'll die before I give it to them, right? So yeah, that's basically as secure as it gets. But I think we all kind of understand that. To me, like a lever below that are things like other L1s, like Ethereum, Solana, like Cardano up there. Like it doesn't really matter what the network is say, but ultimately they don't have the same market cap as Bitcoin, right? It's not worth $1 trillion. That network is easier to be attacked, probably less decentralized. In case of Ethereum, they do a lot of network updates. That network could not go well. That update could not go well. Like when we went to proof of stake, right? A lot of things could have went wrong. And if you're just holding Ethereum and you're not aware of what's happening in the network, a lot of things could go not your way. Same with Solana, the validator set, network going up, down, all this stuff. Like to me, nothing really touches Bitcoin because of how solidified it has been for the last however many years. But then we get.
Why do you Cardano?
I don't know, honestly, because I kind of looked at the top 10 like smart contract chains, and it made the most sense. But literally any L1, right? Like that's kind of the point I was trying to make there. But then once you're on a different L1 and you go into smart contracts, then you're assuming there's smart contract risk. So I have like Aave, Maker, Uniswap, Lido up there, because I think those protocols have been really audited to oblivion, formally verified, whatever. They've been around for a long time. They're probably pretty safe, but you're still assuming some kind of risk, right? Like just holding Ethereum on an L1 is different than holding Ethereum in Aave. Like there is a step of risk you're accepting there. You might think that their contracts are perfect and nothing will ever happen, and that's okay. But I don't think it's a realistic take. Like you have to, like you didn't write that code. You're not God. You don't understand every single thing that could happen in a piece of software. Going down further, if you bridge over to a different network, like Optimism, Arbitrum, whatever, like even if you just move ETH from mainnet to Solana, using some kind of a bridge, you're locking money up somewhere. That's another attack vector for people, right? And I use Optimism, Arbitrum all the time. Like I trust those contracts, whatever. But the point is, again, having ETH on an L2 and having ETH on an L1 is not the same. You're accepting that somebody's code is going to work as intended. You're accepting that their network, their multi-sig, whatever, is going to do what they're supposed to do, and you're taking on more risk. Like, when I was making these slides, I looked at Aave, and the APR for ETH on mainnet is higher than APR on ETH on L2. And like, to me, that makes no sense, because you're taking on more risk and you're getting less APR. I think the only reason that's the case is because people don't want to pay gas or whatever. So But to me, it's a market inefficiency that anyone could exploit. And it's like a very simple one, and maybe there's like not much to it because it's 1.5% versus 2%. Who really cares? You get 3% in Lido anyway. But like those are the things that I like to look for. Anyway, going on. The next level is a level of trust in people, which I kind of like wrote down as upgradable proxies or multi-sigs. So any contract that could be upgraded by some power, whether it's a multi-sig or a DAO, that again like exponentially increases the risk, right? Because we've seen that. I have that Ronin logo up there because that's what happened. They had 5 of 9 multi-sig, 5 of their signatures got compromised, and somebody basically drained the bridge. And it wasn't anything wrong with that smart contract. It wasn't really anything wrong with like this infrastructure. It was just like the individuals responsible for that bridge were irresponsible, got their keys stolen. That's what happened. So like when you're looking and evaluating which protocol you want to go into, if there aren't people or multi-sigs responsible for it, it's better than if there are.
I think that Ronin was actually like, they didn't compromise like 5 different people. I think it was like 5 of the keys in the multi-sig were actually like held at the same place.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 out of the 5 were in the same place, and they got those, and they were just like trying to get that last like one of the last people. But like it was silly, and it wasn't good design, whatever. But like technically, the smart contracts were fine. It wasn't that wasn't really the problem. It was the trust in people that fell apart.
And that's you're not able to
Yeah,
multi-sig.
exactly. So I mean, anytime there's a proxy, there's like increased risk because you don't know who's responsible for upgrading it. Like there was a hack in Mango Markets, I think, on Solana, right? That basically somebody was able to vote through a DAO proposal that let them do a hack on the protocol. Maybe I'm misquoting which protocol it was, but anyway. So after you consider all these things, then you finally can go into DeFi, right? And it's kind of a lot. It's a lot of different dimensions. But the point to me is like, I love this meme. Like, if you don't understand the yield, you are the yield. Like, if you don't know why APR on stablecoins is higher on an L2 than it is on an L1, then like you're just doing yourself a disservice. You're probably taking on risk you're not understanding, and somebody else is probably benefiting from that at the end of the day. I remember when I was first getting into this stuff, and I could not understand why I'm getting paid rewards for providing liquidity in like an L2 pool that, like I would stake on Sushi and I would put it in a different protocol, and they would give me like rewards that are much higher than the APR on Sushi. I'm like, I don't know why they're giving me money. It's like, oh, don't ask questions, just take it. It's just a very, very bad outlook to take. Like, and that protocol paid out for a little while, and then it obviously went to shit. And I had no idea why. And after that, I intended to find out. So I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because, I mean, like some of this you probably guys understand very well. Maybe others don't understand at all, and it's probably not enough time in like a minute to explain it. But I'll do my best. So like a single token stake deposit or staking is just like, I have 3 apps up there. I think that's Aave, that's Lido, and that's like a new protocol that's called Derive, right? Essentially, you put one token in, you deposit it, they pay you some kind of an APR. Like here, it's thanks to staking rewards. That's just from people borrowing, and that's, I think, protocol fees get distributed to token holders. So it's like 3 very different mechanisms, but the same idea at the end of the day. It's very easy to think about. You're buying a token, you're staking it, you're taking the risk of the price movement, and you're benefiting from them, whatever APR they're paying you. So it's like the math is pretty easy, right? And then we get into V2, which the reason I had the previous slide in is because it's very easy. Like you have 1 token to keep track of. You know how much you're getting paid for that. It's pretty straightforward. Once you get into V2, like this is a very simple explanation, right? You put in, the way I like to think about it is you put in $1 million worth of USDC, $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and you just offer people to trade whichever way at the current price. Somebody puts in an extra $100,000 worth of USDC plus, like, let's say a 1% fee. They put $101,000. They take your Bitcoin. Now you have $201,000. You got paid $1,000 to facilitate that trade, and your net worth just increased by $1,000 essentially, right? And the trader paid the fee. Now maybe you have to go buy the Bitcoin somewhere else, and like if you can't get a better fee than what you just collected from that person, then you lost money. But like that's a different story. But the point I wanted to make here is that like Uniswap V2 is actually a pretty complex system, and like if you really want to understand where your risk is, it's not that easy because it's essentially like an options market. you're betting that the price of two assets will stay correlated. And that unless it's like two stable coins, it's probably not going to happen. And it's probably going to happen in weird ways that you can't always predict. There's lots of different ways it can go. Like one token could go up a lot, the other one could go up a little. Both of them could go down. There's so many different things that could happen. You can end up in different spots on this graph. But essentially absorbing the downside of the volatility between the two tokens. Because if one of them goes down, the other one stays the same, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of the token that went down. And it's just a matter of how much in fees have you collected during that time. Does that make up for what you just lost? So, I don't know, that's kind of a, maybe not a great explanation, but the point is, this was taken like a week ago. So on Base, you can go and you could pair ETH with Champ or ALB. I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea what those things are, not financial advice. Please don't go buy them because I put this slide up. But you can get 600% APY, right? So if in 2 months, those tokens stay exactly the same price, you just double your money, right? Like normally you need Bitcoin to go up twice in about 200,000 to make 2x. Here, the price doesn't move. You're actually making money, right? You're collecting yield. So I think this kind of stuff really attracted me to DeFi in the first place. I think that's why I've been doing it for so long. Because like all this craziness happens in the meme coins and everything that goes on in the market. But I just sit there and I just try to pick away at the yield, just little by little, and just keep compounding and hoping to stay alive. And the other point I wanted to make, like the words are much greater, right? Like in the other slide, like we're looking at 2.9% for Lido, like 2% on Aave, like 6% on this like protocol which just launched. Like that's an unreasonable yield. But if you're just gonna hold that token, you might as well get the yield, right? Because there's no more risk besides just staking it. But here you're getting into like 600%, which is kind of ridiculous. And I think the core of it is you're accepting all this extra risk. And if you're not seeing the risk, then you don't know what you're doing.
It's like also the TVL and all those are really, really small.
So
you can only make like a few $100 at most.
Well, no, so to be fair, this is in the protocol that I took the screenshot from. So there's $2 million in that pool. So yeah, there's $2 million in that one. There's 500,000. I think I'd set a minimum of like 100,000 to display them. So yes, 4 million, 300,000. It's not literally $800. That would be kind of ridiculous. Yeah. And then like UniV3, that's more risky than UniV2. And again, you should, if you're going to play with this stuff, you should know why. I think there's like a quote that people say in podcasts all the time. It's like impossible to make money if you're just casually providing liquidity in V3. I don't necessarily find that true. And one strategy I want to share with you guys is what I've been doing is just thinking of V3 as like a DCA trade. So if I want to buy Bitcoin at 80,000, but I'm ready to sell some Bitcoin at 120,000, that's just what I set my range at, right? Like either I'm doing what my trade intended to do, or I'm staying in that range and collecting fees. Like either way, you kind of could win in that way, right? It's just a matter of keeping an eye on it and like getting your position out if it gets to one way or the other. But anyway, the point was that this is essentially V2 with leverage. So there's going to be more risk. And again, if a V2 pool is giving a better APR than a V3 pool, then like something is not right. Like you're not thinking through something, or the market is just inefficient and you should go for it and like make sure you understand it and just squeeze it out, right? And then really quickly, I just wanted to run like some other ways to get yield, just like lots of different ways, from stable coins, oracles, like you can provide liquidity to oracles, like provide the feed, get rewards, or you can just stake an oracle source. Bridge liquidity, like there's HOP protocol, I think, allows you to just kind of provide liquidity on both sides, as long as the bridge doesn't get hacked, you can keep collecting yield. Perps are pretty good, the funding rates. Yeah, a couple of other options. Like I can't go through them all because first of all, I wouldn't be doing them any justice. Like sitting here for 60 seconds talking about Uniswap V2, it's just not enough time. But if you're interested, look into those things. And so, I don't know, this is kind of like half-baked stream of consciousness. Like I said, it's I just thought I would share the things I learned along the way in the last 4 years in like 15 minutes or less. It was pretty difficult, but I think if I was to boil it all down, it kind of comes down to this, like the pyramid, right? Like the more smart contract risk you take on, like it shouldn't come for free, and if it does, then you're doing something like it's not a good deal. Then the other thing to think about is like, are the tokens you're buying, are they actually worth buying? Like, what is your risk tolerance towards them? And then kind of important, like the yield design is a big one too that people often don't think about. But like essentially, the higher the volume, there's some percentage of fees that gets taken out of that volume, and that should come to you as a liquidity provider. And to me, anything in between is like shrinkage, which is like a term used in retail, right? Like when somebody goes into the supermarket and steals an apple, like it's just going to happen. Like supermarkets account for that. So to me, like all these certain protocols or tools, like the screenshot I had from DeFi, right, that shows you different yields, and you can put money into those pools through DeFi, but they'll take a percentage from you. So whatever money you were going to earn, now you're earning less because they're collecting a fee from you. Just like there's certain front ends that will take a fee, right? You can think about those things as kind of like shrinkage on your yield. Maybe you can interact directly with a smart contract. I don't know. But ultimately, if you compare the position A and position B, and this app is taking more fees than this app, then like there's like, unless this one is so much more safe, you know which one to choose, right? Like the one with less fees. So that's kind of like what I'm getting at here. Like if you don't think about all the risk in DeFi, then you're just like gambling, right? Which is okay. Like you can buy Fartcoin, hope it goes up. I mean, a lot of people do that. A lot of people get rich on Fartcoin, apparently. But if you want to like build a more long-term strategy in DeFi, then finding those little inefficiencies is how you can really make money. And it keeps getting more and more difficult. I remember in 2021, there were so many events in crypto that like people just didn't know about. But it still happens now, right? Like for example, there was a big unlock in OP tokens, and anybody who was paying attention knew the price would tank. But probably a lot of people just think Superchain is really cool, I want to invest in that, and they buy the token. Again, not financial advice. Superchain is awesome, optimism is awesome, but like, protect your neck. I think that's all I had. These are some ways to connect with me. And yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions. Go for it, Kirk.
This one is what's runtime verification?
Oh yeah, we're a security company, so we do smart contract auditing, which I basically didn't talk about at all. But obviously, smart contracts come with their risks. We review them, test them, make sure that they're up to snuff. Anything else?
So are you still as heavy into doing DJing things?
Sometimes.
Exploring?
It depends on the market, like circumstances. And so when things were going sideways for a long time, even 2022, 2023, I was just sitting in some pools and collecting rewards, and it's like prices aren't really moving. So that was a good time to actually do it, even though the APRs were relatively low. Then the APRs got real high, but then things are constantly getting out of range and getting crazy. So I've been just going with it just because I enjoy learning about all this stuff. But yeah, I've been in it. I'm not getting out because it's like a hobby at this point. New strategies?
Have you thought
I mean, to me, the funding rates on Hyperliquid are pretty insane right now. So if you take a short position on anything, like I can't do the math in my head or whatever, and it changes daily and like hourly or whatever. But as an example, like I took a short position on Hyperliquid, on the token itself, and I think within a couple of weeks I got 10% of my position in funding fees, which is, I mean, to me that seems inefficient, right? So, not financial advice. So, airdrops? Well, apparently Hyperliquid's going to have another big airdrop. The first one wasn't it. Like I think that's only a small portion of the total money allocated to airdrops. and people love it. So I don't think the price hasn't been moving. So I guess that airdrop's going to be pretty juicy.
To the Barachain testnet for the past year?
I didn't because they didn't let me into a party at Denver, and I got really mad at them, and I refused to use Barachain.
Yeah. It seemed like a bust from what I saw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I fooled around with it for a year. I got nothing, and then you look at the tweets and different stuff like that, and you start to see a theme. People saying the same stuff, like WTF. I did hundreds of transactions and this and that, and I got zero. And they showed screenshots.
Oh, wow.
What they got.
I mean, I think they've raised 150 million or so, and I think their like valuation right now is like 300 million in token. So I don't know where that money went, and I think a lot of that money is going to liquidity. So I think it's just like not a great time right this moment to drop it, do an airdrop. 2 months ago, probably would have done a lot better. Anything else? All right. Well, sorry for boring you to death. What's up? Okay. I wasn't sure, but like I don't know. I always have like a Web2 friend that be like, oh, but aren't you afraid crypto is just gonna get erased by quantum computing? I'm like, no. I think a lot of other things are gonna be in trouble. That's good. Well, Ethereum L2s are, well, they're not exactly bridges, right? I consider them as something else. That's fair. They're not exactly bridges. I guess it's more so I meant.
Well, you could have bridges too, then. But the chain itself is not necessarily a bridge.
They do, but like technically, you can get your money out of an Optimism, like smart contract deployed in Optimism, just by sending a transaction to Ethereum, which is unique for optimistic rollups, right? Yeah, I guess there the point is just like once you're putting money in a smart contract, you're taking on that additional risk, right? So as you go down, there's more and more risk. And maybe the nomenclature here isn't great, but the idea is that Aave on Optimism is not as secure as Aave on an L1. And the reason for that is because the L1, so actually the Arbitrum bridge, there was an exploit where a dude was able to lock the funds in the Arbitrum bridge permanently. He reported that to Arbitrum. What's that? Well, you can't just freeze everybody's ETH, right? Well, the main smart contract where all the ETH is stored for Arbitrum, that smart contract he was able to lock so that you can no longer withdraw, and that ETH would have essentially been dead. So Arbitrum would have died. He found this exploit, he reported it to Arbitrum. They actually, so he gave a talk, and he was really pissed off because they didn't consider that a high critical bug. Well, no, because if I have ETH on an L1, you can't lock it as long as Ethereum network is still working, right?
Say if you have ETH on the Ethereum blockchain, you hold it. It's not part of a smart contract. You're not subject to any smart contract. If you bridge ETH to an L2, then your real ETH is held in an L1 smart contract. Yeah. You're using it on the L2, but if something happens with an L1 smart contract, you're F, which is what could have happened with Arbitrum.
Yeah,
right.
But also, like, L2s are also native assets.
But I guess my interpretation of this is like holding a L1 asset on an L2. Hold the L2 asset on the L2. It's sort of the same as it's an L1 in that case.
Yeah. I guess like an Optimism token on Ethereum mainnet is not any safer than an Optimism token on Optimism, but that makes sense, right? Yeah, I meant more like ETH specifically. Yeah, and more so than that, really, is what I meant is that if you use those apps on an L2, you take one smart contract risk and another smart contract risk versus just one.
A little question about that audits, smart contracts. Do you guys provide any? Is there any liability for you? That I guess recently there was a rating that got hacked. Turned out to be probably a little bit, but people like how the people audited them. So there's no FDIC will come in and say, "Yo, you have to $100 a day or $50." But in serious liability.
So some would argue that the word audit should not be used for smart contract audits because we technically do not assume any responsibility. And there's apparently been a lawsuit related to that, the word audit specifically. So no, like essentially no auditor takes real responsibility for the underlying assets. We're just like we just provide our expertise to do our best effort to make sure that their contracts are secure. That's pretty much right. That's pretty much right. I would say though, like we find things almost every single audit we do, like we find issues that most of them are impactful. So if something has been audited, then it's not a good sign. Like even really good code that comes to us, like in 3 weeks, 2 security experts will find something, right? Like I mean, it just keeps happening time and time again. But like sometimes we're the second auditors, right? So think about that. Like sometimes somebody else has already audited this for 4 weeks. We come along, we do it for 4 weeks, and we find 3 more or 4 more bugs that could have impacted user funds. So an audit is not an audit, and I think that's what really people should take away as well, is like if it's been audited by CertiK, like, you know, the S in CertiK stands for security, and, you know, there's no S in CertiK, so.
Is that what you actually do there? Do you do security-related work?
I don't do the actual, like, looking over in the code, because I'm not smart enough, but I help the people that do communicate to the customers what happened. That's fair. I wouldn't want to. That. No, and we're starting to like use AI tooling a lot more on processes because it just saves time on some stuff. There's some people building like fully fledged auditors that are AI, but like I don't. That's not gonna. We're so far from that. All right. Cheers. Thanks, guys.